my husband and I go to put the knife away. Put it away.
I was gonna point with it for emphasis.
When my husband and I go to baby showers,
we
don't like to give regular gifts. Okay,
we're weirdos.
We don't like to give baby clothes.
Yeah, because that's
useful. We don't
useful.
like to give bottles.
Everybody's doing that,
right? We like to give books, but not baby books.
Not books for your baby.
Not books like books that your baby won't be able to read for 8 to 12 years.
If at all. Some of you still can't read.
And so, my book of choice used to be Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
It's now Percy Jackson and the Olympians.
Okay, yeah.
And my husband's book of choice has consistently, for the past 6 years, The Art of War.
Yeah.
My husband gives not yet born babies a copy, nice copies too, bound in leather, gilt edges. Okay, we spent fucking $30 at Barnes and Noble.
It was on sale.
I'm sorry, it was $24.99.
Yeah. Now relax on that. That has been the full 30. It's crazy. A little bit of life advice, a little bit of wartime strategy. It's important for you to read.
I've gotten used to the confused looks.
Yeah, they're waiting for baby stuff.
The vague concern as they realize this is the gift. There's nothing more in the bag.
There's an importance to The Art of War that the Western mind can appreciate the first time you read it.
Yeah.
After you've read it, you're like, oh, this is outdated, antiquated, a bit weird. But the first time you read it is an eye-opening experience that I think every person can appreciate. If I ever go to war, I make sure I have ample grain to feed my army. When to attack, when to retreat. You know.
These are important things that every
on the field of battle.
Every child needs
go
to
into
know.
Elementary school prepared. You know?
I picked this video for you.
Oh, well, thanks.
It's an overly sarcastic productions video.
If you go into a room and you bring up quotes of The Art of War that are kind of misquoted and somebody corrects you, leave. All right, let's do it. Here we go.
When reading a book from the catalog of classics, be it hundreds of years old or thousands, we always have to cross a layer of abstraction before we can really understand the text. Even after accounting for language translation, we still have to consider the historical setting of the book, its cultural context, idiosyncrasies of the style, and the original intended audience. Some ancient books can feel surprisingly
What does that say? He who knows man, other men is discerning. He who knows himself is intelligent. Ooh, that's a bar.
Of the style and the original intended audience. Some ancient books can feel surprisingly modern to readers because of timeless themes or lasting influences on everything that came after. That's why 16th century Chinese epic The Journey to the West reads like second nature to anyone who's ever seen Goku fire off a Kamehameha. It's medieval, it's folkloric, but it's the ancestor of anime, so the barrier to entry is little more than a good translation and some free time. Then, on the far opposite end of the spectrum are the books that are just plain tough. The works that, for all their fame, ask a lot of the reader before anything makes a lick of sense. And here we find Sun Tzu's The Art of War, a rather brief text so fascinatingly terse and bound up in its original historical context that it seems at once empty and utterly indecipherable.
What? What are you talking about?
Damn.
Every single book now of The Art of War comes with what he actually said and what we want him to be saying that he said.
He ragging on your book, bro.
With background. That's just the original. You don't read that. Read some, author you've never heard of explain to you what he thinks that it means.
Like the annotated version.
Yeah.
This book is everywhere, from military training to political science to business school. Yuck. But the pop culture understanding of Sun Tzu's ancient military manual lacks the context to be anything more than one-dimensional platitudes.
Okay.
Ponder and deliberate before you make a move.
Yeah.
Wow, I hadn't considered being smart before. I'll try that next time. Another banger by Sun Tzu. What next? If your enemy's shooting arrows at you, consider not getting shot by them? Golly, victory's as good as mine. This is the ungenerous read, a position I myself held when I first read The Art of War several years back, and it's the equal and opposite perspective to the goobers who smugly treat The Art of War as corporate business advice. We differ in our patience for the pithy one-liners, but both camps generally misunderstand the point of the text by ignoring its context and purpose. So the reading lacks any nuance regardless of whether we're being cynical or glib. But look more carefully and take the text as a whole rather than tiny isolated quotes, and there's a lot to learn.
Real quick. How many times have you read The Art of War?
It's not a long read. It's not, you don't read it. It's like a dictionary. You read it at the part that you want to read it in. You don't read it cover to cover. I'm sorry, did you do that at some point? Don't read your dictionary to cover, and don't do that with The Art of War either.
I don't see why you wouldn't read the dictionary cover to cover, to be honest. It's never bad to know words.
It's important to know your flavor of mental illness. So if you got the, I need to organize rocks kind, or if I gotta read the dictionary like a love story. It's a reference.
Okay, well, how many times have you referenced The Art of War?
A lot.
Because I've never even cracked the cover.
You see a girl and a group of friends and you go, how should I approach this? Art of War. You got a strategy for me?
I'm done.
Pop it open, give it a little skim, remind yourself who you are. Be the wise dominator, okay? Yeah.
To learn. Master Sun's Military Methods, as it was originally titled, was written at a time of serious interstate competition and cultural change in ancient China. With the context of this evolving society, The Art of War reads as a deeply philosophical treatise on the methodology of warfare. It was a brand new mindset for a previously unexplored topic in Chinese literature, and it can tell us as much about China as it can about warfare. To see how, let's do some history. As always, our first angle of attack for the wily world of literature is figuring out our author. In this case, it's Master Sun, Sun Tzu, the honorific title given to the general Sun Wu, who's said to have lived around 500 BC. This places him at the tail end of the spring and autumn period. 3 centuries of competition between dozens of small local states stepping into the power vacuum left by a weakened Zhou dynasty. This soon gave way to the Warring States period. 3 more centuries of increasingly fierce warfare between a dwindling handful of powerful states, snowballing into the ascension of the Qin dynasty in 221 BC. To grossly simplify 2 of the most fascinating periods in Chinese political and cultural history, spring and autumn is the soap opera, Warring States is the cage fight. Details of the life of our famous general are expectedly slim, but the primary narrative comes our way in the records of the Grand Historian by Sima Xian, wherein Sun rolled into the state of Wu and demonstrated his skill to Lord He Liu by lining up 180 royal concubines and assigning 2 to be in charge of drilling military formations. Naturally, this didn't work very well, and they all burst into fits of laughter at how silly the whole thing was, until, of course, Sun Wu ordered that the 2 concubines in charge get beheaded for lack of discipline. He then brought 2 brand new promising young leaders to the front of the class and ran the exercise again.
Now what?
This time, the results were flawless. Wow! Logic went that if Sun Wu could wring such a performance out of untrained concubines after a measly 2 executions, imagine what he could do with a whole-ass army, and so he was made a general on the spot. This story is patently ridiculous, but it conveys that the character of Sun Wu wrote from experience and puts him at a distinct moment in time, running the military for the state of Wu during the reign of Lord He Liu.
So, like, when you first get approached with this, that part of the story is told all across every source of media you've ever seen in different variations. And a lot of the most famous one right now is like the Top Gun type movies, which are like pro-war movies in modern history. But like something just terrible happens to the other guys that just don't follow along with the crazy cowboy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they just trust the crazy cowboy because the method works. Right. You know? But it's just that constant theme. Like in war, it's about discipline and also about skill. Yeah. And like your perceptions of people who fight wars are always kind of skewed because the people who fight wars are people who think war stands for something. And that's a really important part of it. And you don't really consider that from the outside. Right. You know, we can get into like the post-war mindset, you know, and delude ourselves about the war doesn't mean anything and it's all pointless. We should just stop all the killing, blah, blah, blah. Behead them. And once you get rid of those naysayers, you get a lot of people who are really willing to pull the trigger.
Behead them.
514 to 496 BC. If life was easy, this would be the end of it. We've got our guy right at the tail end of the spring and autumn. Okay. However, issues arise as the story first appears during the Han Dynasty centuries after the fact and cites him as winning the Battle of Boji. But a detailed account of that battle from 2 centuries earlier doesn't mention our boy in the slightest.
Oh, shit.
This is the first in a series of narrative wrinkles that add together to create a very problematic web of contradictions against the neat and tidy tale we get from Sima Xian. Sun Wu can be viewed as a real person who wrote a military treatise, but it's just as likely he is a pure fable invented after the fact to be historical provenance for a military manual that was written anonymously during the Warring States period.
Are you telling me that they Herodotus us? That didn't.
I think most ancient texts.
Wait, is Herodotus what I'm thinking of?
No, you're thinking of Homer.
No, I'm not.
You're thinking of Homer. I don't know who you're thinking of. You're thinking of.
I think I am. Hold on.
We're holding.
Don't play me.
I won't.
Herodotus.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the historian guy. Yeah.
What about him?
He lies a lot.
Says who?
Like consistently lied a lot.
He's telling other people's stories. Those aren't lies. Those are inaccurate historical accounts made by a third party.
They fucking Herodotus us.
I think most writers in the ancient time are in a desperation to have cleanly written books, because when you write down what actually happened, it doesn't look so good.
Right.
And it's just all about spinning it, baby. How do we make ourselves better if we write down what actually happened? We gotta write down the best part.
Sometimes shit didn't happen because he had a plan for everything. Sometimes that man was just mad and killed everybody.
Yeah, but it's but again, your war has to stand for something. It has to have some kind of theme to it. But having war just for the sake of war isn't the way of, civilized people. And when after war comes peace, and peaceful people won't go to war for nothing.
Yeah.
So you have to have some kind of driving force for stability. And, when you're people that live in strife comes easily. Think of like Naruto, right? I mean, back in the day, they was just killing people just cause. Like they tell the stories back in Naruto, like, why do we kill this village? Because we do that.
Yeah.
And then when they start, their kids are like, but why, Dad? Right? And they have to have their best friend beheaded in front of them to go, oh, this is why.
Yeah.
I remember, So this is kind of like the theme of war and like the methodology that we should be using for war.
It wouldn't be an outlier, as this era saw the 100 schools of thought building literary and philosophical traditions across China. Confucianism was one such school whose essential texts were written by many hands over a long stretch of time. That rolling composition could also account for anachronisms like 4th century crossbows showing up in the text. And the earliest copy of The Art of War we have is from pretty dang late. It was discovered alongside another military manual in an early Han Dynasty tomb from around when the book gained widespread popularity. It's a fascinating find for several reasons, but both camps cited it as proof of their interpretation, either affirming or disproving a historical Sun Tzu. So ultimately, the authorship is an open question, and I'm certainly not going to be the guy who figures it out, but that's okay because we are still left with the most important thing.
The text itself.
And that is plenty. In a culture that was used to throwing chariot-mounted aristocrats at each other, The Art of War radically rethinks what strategy means and how it's applied. Battles are no longer contests of raw force. If your enemy is temperamental, seek to irritate him. The rules have changed, and this is a far more intricate game. Most famously, all warfare is based on deception. So if scouts can spot an army in the distance by the smoke rising from camp, light a buttload of fires to make your army appear larger in the hopes of scaring them off. The whole book is like this. The first 2 chapters are preparation for war and waging campaigns, the middle 10 are tactics in the field, and the last is spycraft. But all of it is a study of information, preparedness.
Like that many chapters.
It really isn't.
I just meant that many sections.
I mean, it's organized. It's a complete organized manual for war from start to finish. It just covers literally every scenario you could think of.
Right.
It even has a little part like we're going from one little segment to another. In like a separated army that are encamped in 2 different areas. Yeah. How to retreat from them. And it's very intricate in that kind of way. But again, the entire concept they're trying to build is a methodology for your warfare. And like, what kind of generals do we want in thinking on the battlefield?
Right. Yeah.
not just training and going out in big squares and you're stabbing and then that's it. Like we're trying to have some kind of tactic.
Right. Understanding your terrain, your opponent, your own constraints, what advantages you can press. By the time armies actually meet on the field, it's already decided. And battle is absolutely the last resort. It's far more effective to undermine an enemy's strategy or subvert their alliances before drawing any swords. And even that's preferable to wasting weeks or months besieging a city.
Right.
Deception and stratagems aren't just effective, they're efficient, and the general's true skill is achieving strategic advantage for their state with or without killing the other guy. From a purely military standpoint, Sun Tzu captures the essence of all-out conflict in the Warring States period, and that alone is historically insightful, but the real depth of the book comes out when read philosophically through the lens of Taoism.
Okay.
Now, Taoism is famously about seeking harmony by following a heavenly path, a practice that seems categorically at odds with the study of warfare. On paper, sure, but Taoism is all about untangling contradictions. The Taoist view sees everything in relation to a greater whole, just like the general must understand the terrain, the enemy, and themselves in order to craft a strategy.
Damn.
Every detail interacts.
Yes.
I gotta understand myself to be able to fight that guy?
Yeah. You got to know.
Why can't I just kill that guy?
Right. Right?
I feel like I could I feel like I could just kill that guy.
It's like
without doing any introspection.
It's like when you're playing Tekken and you're just like, do I do a running 2 again? You know what I mean? Like, you got to know yourself. Like, if I go to do a run... Also, am I comfortable losing because I just keep... Because I just keep doing it.
Yeah.
You know? What's a really good example? When we play 2v2s, and then if we lose more than a couple, we just change our deck. We're modifying.
Yeah.
We're changing.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, what did I say? We've changed enough. It's not about us. It's about execution now.
This is it. Yep.
When we have the optimal version, the next card we change is not going to win us. We got to play better. We got to execute better.
Yeah.
You know,
it's in us.
It's about us.
Similarly Taoist is the concept of Wu Wei, often rendered as non-action, but better understood as effortless action. Sun Tzu wants the simplest approach with the lightest touch. Avoid protracted campaigns at all costs, overcome the enemy without wasteful battles, undermine their strategy and alliances before jumping to war. Resorting to combat is a failure of strategy, so when conflict is inevitable, spend the least amount of effort necessary to restore harmony.
I feel like you all know this already. Like, I feel like he said that, and this is something we're all aware of, and we all have a common understanding of, right? Like, it's very sensible.
Uh-huh.
You don't want to fight with your wife, right? Spend as little time in the fight as possible. We didn't want to be here. We have to be here.
Yeah.
So let's do it efficiently and as quickly as possible. Give her spoiled milk. She'll be shitting. You don't have to fight. This is the way of war. It is about deception and ultimate victory.
Oh my God.
Her tummy is sick. I am at peace. When she gets back, I'll be like, you feel better, baby? All right, here's some Pepto. I caused the problem to fix it. Who gives a fuck? I threw away your hairbrush. You know, we have bigger problems.
You good?
It's the gaslighting textbook.
Well, you know what? If I die of fucking stomach problems, you know who to look at. It's on camera.
It's just a funny thing because the book is about war.
Yeah.
And when he opens with some of the war strategies, and you look at it from this mindset, because that is the concepts. It's very clearly the concepts, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's really explaining to people, like, don't get so caught up in the fact that you want to fight and be a warmonger. He warns people against these warmongering generals. He's like, people are our resource. If you're spending people flippantly, you're a problem. That needs to be eliminated.
Yeah.
You know?
Fighting for the glory and etc.
What the hell? Leave.
Yeah.
I mean, you're fighting here. You're entrapped. Why don't we just try pretending to run away and jumping them later? That shit is way more efficient.
I fully support
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, that general's got a weakness. Target it. Target the weakness. Go home to your family.
Yes.
You know, I love this one. I want to say it's something about a long journey. Yeah. And basically just like planning for a long journey and then taking advantage of when the other, like, you know, traveling army gets hungry. Mm-hmm. You know, when they travel, they got to eat. Don't let them eat.
Hell yeah.
It's a very simple process.
Hell yeah. Harass them.
Something's wrong with this guy. Like, he's twisted.
The highest excellence is to subdue the enemy's army without fighting at all. That suddenly sounds a lot less like fortune cookie nonsense and more like real Taoist philosophy of effortless action. And the original intended audience would have known exactly that this is the point. This context transforms the entire book. The general then takes on the air of a philosopher, pursuing harmony for their state in accordance with the heavenly Tao through strategy. Yield and overcome, bend and become straight, empty and become full, adapt to circumstance, adapt to your enemy. That's all classic Taoism.
That should sound like some shit from the Bible. Yield and overcome, bend and become straight, empty and become full.
Yeah, but they mean
Jesus and
and
your
you
loin
can fly.
will be fruitful.
Yeah. But the difference between this and Christianity is Christianity means it literally. They mean you're literally filling your soul with Jesus.
Yeah.
And then in Taoism, it is definitely like a spiritual venture. You know, it's a conceptual, you're in tune with your feelings.
Yeah.
You may never see this happening. This is an internal struggle.
Yeah.
You know, oh, you want people to see you being like this? You're already failing, kind of. You know?
I'm full in my heart.
One step further, the whole book parallels Chinese rhetoric. Unlike the Greek rhetoric of persuasive argumentation, Taoist rhetoric aims to cultivate harmonious relationships and achieve self-enlightenment through inward contemplation. Only speak if it improves on silence. Only fight a battle if you absolutely have to. Both arts value efficiency, and neither seeks to be loud. In both cases, the key character strength of the philosopher general is their understanding. They gather as much information as they can, then all the action happens internally. Philosophically, rhetoric and generalship have the exact same skill set. The Art of War is a philosophy book, and its readers as well as its critics treated it as such. In the 200s BC, a philosopher named Sun Tzu attacked the Art of War's cold rationalism with Confucian ideology, indicating to us that Sun Tzu fit comfortably in philosophy's domain. And the Art of War was not the only philosophical book on military theory, as a work by Wu Xi balances Confucius with Sun Tzu by asserting virtuous character as a prerequisite for military skill. His book, The Wu Tzu, sits alongside The Art of War as one of China's 7 military classics.
I've never heard of it
best of list popularized during the Song Dynasty. The Art of War became required reading for the imperial military exams, found huge popularity in medieval Japan, and later informed the guerrilla warfare strategies of Mao Zedong in the 20th century. While the wider world has become fascinated with the book's military prescriptions, the through line of Taoism that makes it work has been thoroughly lost. The Art of War demonstrates the genius subtleties of Chinese philosophy by operating on multiple levels: military, philosophical, and rhetorical. Cherry-picked quotes are always the enemy of wisdom, but the Art of War got it really rough. I guess I can't feel too bad for Sun Tzu. The man might not even exist, but wouldn't that just be his ultimate deception? To become unbeatable, one must first become un. Truly the greatest strategic mind in history.
Jesus Christ.
Well, that's very fun.
I picked that for you.
Thanks.
That's your video.
He should have quoted it more. This was more like the history of it.
Yeah, I mean, it is blue. You know, I think if it were red, because it's blue, he's going to talk more about like the history stuff. If it was red would have talked a bit more about like the text itself.
The content in it. Yeah, it sounds like Blue didn't read it, and he should give it another read.
No, Blue read it, but Blue wants to talk about the
passion.
He wants to talk about the history. He doesn't want to talk about the book.
You know, shouts out to Blue, giving us now a reading list of the other war readings from the time.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was in competition. I will be joining.
I was going to say, I already know my husband's about to go find these.
I'm not a fanboy, right, of the entire war culture and history of the area.
Yeah.
I got projected straight into nihilism, right? And that just becomes an obsession of itself. We've projected our feelings on war to these areas of time, but the Western mindset is that we've perfected war actually. Like, you know, there's good to read, but it's kind of like a fun fantasy for video games and for life and for understanding the thought process of the generals of the time.
Like a fairy tale.
You know, same thing with us really liking samurai. We would never do that on the battlefield today.
Right.
We have AKs. We don't need them anymore. You know, I learned some things here and I got some more things to read, so let's move forward and do it.
I gave my husband homework
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is good stuff. We got to finish it all before Dynasty Warriors comes out.
Oh,
so we
God.
got some things to do. But yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, Love, for the suggestion and selection.
You're welcome.
We'll see you guys through your next baby shower. I hope it's alive. All right, here we go. Well, I was going to say boy or girl, but then I couldn't decide. So I went with just living.
Which is good, right?
It's great.
We do want your baby to
I
be
do.
alive.
I know. Who doesn't want it? Fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not me. Let's go.